Hey everybody, welcome to West Coast Live. My name is Andrew Slack. I'm joined by Forrest Hansen again, because the conversation is just too good. Welcome to the new setup. I hope you like it. I'm very, very proud of my ability to cut and paste.
This is so far exceeding any expectations I may have had. Like, I'm so happy right now.
This is what I do when I'm sick.
So Andrew previewed this to me as, oh, okay, I'm gonna have like some kind of iffy graphics. I don't know how I feel about it in classic Andrew fashion. And it comes in just looking pro AF, and I'm so happy right now. Like, this is so cool. I don't know. I'm getting a little flustered over here.
Maybe I'll show you my Twitch setup later. It's 10 pounds of hilarious. So we were gonna have a really special. Whoa, there's so many forests on that screen. We were going to have a really special episode with Forrest and Shantala Davis, but I just didn't feel like I hyped it enough this week, and I wanted to make sure everybody knew we were going to do this. So we're doing that next week. Please join us for that. It'll be me, Forrest, and Shanti talking about some more heavy shit, and it's going to be great. If you can make it, please make it. If not, this thing is always recorded. Also, I might be archiving these pretty soon. They'll be available on a YouTube channel, but I'll let you know when that's going to happen. So today, wow, things are glitching on my end. Blah. There we go. And Forrest just died. Forrest?
Hi, what's up? Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there was no sound.
That's okay.
So we got a number of topics, and I think we should I'm going to handle a couple of the really minor ones and pretty much just tell people that we've got you covered. I'm still getting a lot of very self-conscious messages and like, how do I, approach people in a more confident way? How do I bring myself into the dance more? And Forrest and I have talked about that a whole lot so far. So we're really not going to cover it today, but I want to tell everybody that we do have plans to do a lot of projects around that to help you feel more empowered and that sort of thing. So while we may not talk about it a ton, I'm sure it'll come up today. At the very least, I'm going to be putting together a sort of super micro convention kind of thing. There'll be no competitions really. It'll just be more about empowering you and trying to make you understand what you're good at, what you suck at, and why that's cool both ways. But enough about that for today. We're thinking about you guys always. Today so let's do the easy version of this first, because I feel like this could
Okay.
So,
all right.
So I'm not going to tell you who wrote this because they didn't tell me if they wanted to be anonymous or not. So I'm just going to go on the side of anonymity. Basically, the question, the topic was, can you talk about the proliferation of shitty leads and how YouTube and Flash and Trash are causing follows to get more hurt more often, which is why most higher level dancer or follows don't social dance anymore. And I want to make sure that you know that while that says shitty leads, let's talk about everybody, because the YouTube generation is a thing, and you do have, there's some nuances that people aren't taking the time to learn. They just see a move and they go out and they do it. This is also happening a ton in jazz and hip hop. They don't understand, like, oh, it takes a lot of time to be limber to do X. I'm just going to go do it, and oh, my ACL is blown out. So let's get into this.
Sure, yeah.
You had a lot. I love the way you were talking about it before, and I am sick as a dog. So you start.
Okay, sure, yeah. Well, it's sort of ironic for me to be the person who's talking about this because I kind of consider myself part of that YouTube generation. It's true, just being real about it. Where I started in West Coast Swing largely because I had a couple of friends who were really into it, and they showed me cool videos on YouTube. And I think that the first West Coast Swing video I ever watched is just titled West Coast Swing. Great SEO, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's a video of Miles and Tessa dancing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think that it has like over like 1 million views or something because it just has the best title. It's just titled West Coast Swing.
Yeah.
And great video, fun dance. And I saw that and I was like, wow, I want to do that. So I think that YouTube has been really instrumental in terms of growing the dance and becoming a vehicle that people can feel like they can access it really easily.
Yeah.
But I do also think that both because of YouTube, but honestly more because of the way that we judge contests, and maybe we can get into that, maybe we can't.
Yeah. Well, we
There
kind of
has
got
been
into it
this
last
real,
week. So
yeah, we kind of touched on that a little bit last week. There's been this sort of proliferation of the idea that like the quantity of patterns that you can jam into any 45-second sequence determines how good of a dancer you are.
yeah.
Um, and I'm not totally sure how we kind of break that IV that we currently have plugged into our body as a dance community, but I do think that it's something that we need to think about a little bit.
I agree. I mean, how there's what percentage or whatever, what magic Maxwell hammer, how much do you jam into your vein of this is all me, but oh, that's right, I have a partner. You know, there's a special
Sure,
ratio
yeah.
there, and it's something that I suck at comparatively. Like my strength is comparatively my solo skills. Like I can move my body really
Yeah,
well.
that's your training for
Yeah, it's
sure.
my jam. So, and I wouldn't consider myself a bad partner, but if I had to quantify what was better than the other, it's my ability to move myself. So,
Hmm.
with that, there's like this learning curve, especially since most of my idols are not partner dancers. They are solo dancers, where I have to be very aware, especially in a competition, of when I get more excited. Like I'm doing too much, this isn't going to help anybody. And there is like in the middle of a competition, I have to, I tell myself that. And just as like a skill to develop, there's a thing called 4x4 breathing or 4x4x4, depending on who you're talking to. So it's honestly a tactic that you get trained in the Marines. And
Oh, okay.
it's great. It's nothing super special. It's just you breathe in for 4 counts, you hold your breath for 4 counts, and then you breathe out for 4 counts, you hold your breath for 4 counts. And it just
Hmm.
reminds you to take control of your breathing. And I think I've said this on a previous cast, but one of my director, the guy I kind of attribute most of my training to now, he says, control your breath, control your life. And like, there are so
Hmm.
many things that you can avoid, so many snafus, whether it's on the dance floor or just like weird interpersonal bullshit, if you learn to just calm yourself and take
Sure.
control.
Yeah, I think that having good check-in techniques for that, and I think that he would be okay with me saying this. I was talking with Kyle Red one time,
Yeah.
and or he was talking in a workshop, I forget which one it was, and he was talking about how he has visualizations that he does sometimes before he
Yeah.
goes out to compete, where and one that he shared, again, I think he would be comfortable with me sharing this, was the idea that like just visualizing himself sort of covered in like some dark, like dirty color, like or like feeling like he's covered in mud. And then he can kind of step into, a light or a shower or whatever the visualization is, and all of that falls off of him, and like the true light is kind of revealed, right? And I heard that, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna do that the next time that I compete. And I felt so much more comfortable when I was just kind of in the on deck area. I sort of
Yeah.
sat for a second, I checked in with myself. Um, and I kind of performed that visualization, and I found that personally very powerful. So just I think that to kind of wander back to this idea of how can we be a better partner,
Yeah.
which is really what we're sort of talking about here.
Yeah.
I do think that patience is a huge part of it that you're talking about, whether that's a patience that comes from being able to recenter yourself in your breath, or patience that comes from a confidence in your technique
Yeah.
and a confidence in your movement, where you don't have to just kind of throw patterns at a problem,
Yeah.
hoping that the patterns will solve it,
I tried screaming
Um,
at it, I tried hitting it, nothing
yeah,
worked.
nothing worked. It's still the problem's still there. And I was talking to Joel Jimenez about this actually,
Oh yeah.
through Messenger and um, through Facebook message before, and we were talking about an event over the weekend, which was All Star Swing Jam held in the Bay Area,
Wait,
and
the Akron. Okay, All
you,
Stars.
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Ass
Don't
Jam?
ask
Are you
questions. Hey,
serious?
I
Whose
didn't come
convention is
up with
this?
the
And who do I owe
look.
a high five?
It's Connor Goodmanson and Lauren Wood. They are
Yep.
fantastic. It was a super fun event.
Cool.
But we were just talking, and we both kind of agreed that if you watch most of the really, hey, perfect timing,
Yeah,
Joel.
Joel. Hey.
If you watch most of like the really really successful dances that you really remember and really love, what you see is you see a dance where it's just dancing
Yeah.
for like a minute 15 seconds, and then there are two moments that people will remember, right? It's just good dancing, it's just good partnering, and then there are two moments where it's like, oh, that was a moment.
Yeah.
And I think that in the pursuit of those two moments where it's like, oh, that's a moment, people often kind of lose the thread of the rest of the dancing.
Yeah.
um, because we're constantly searching for that special thing to happen. But the special thing only happens if we're open to it not happening, kind of ironically enough.
Well, I
So,
don't find it ironic at all. I think it makes perfect sense because there's a quote that I like to use from Patton Oswalt that's wit cannot have an agenda. You know, when you're
mm-hmm.
really trying to be funny, it usually doesn't work. You're just sort of like shotgun blasting your way through things. And the same with, especially the same with dance or really any art. Past a certain point, you may have motivation behind what you're doing, but if it's like, I'm gonna hit that and we're gonna dance it like a motherfucker, like it's just not gonna
Sure,
work the
yeah.
same way.
Hmm. I totally.
And honestly, like a great example of this is like I think you sent it to me, but it was the dance with Hugo and Cameo.
Hmm.
And fully candid, I usually don't like Hugo's dancing. It's just it doesn't touch me for whatever reason. I think he's super
Yeah.
talented,
Yeah.
but it's just not my Jimmy Jam. But that one was good. Like that was everything looked really organic, and it's not hard to do that when you're dancing with Cameo, but still, it was a nice
Mhm.
synergy. So I guess if anybody's looking for an example, look up that dance from Mad Jam from like what 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty recently. I guess, other side of it, like like I love Hugo's dancing. I'm a total stan for Hugo's dancing. Him and Sean and Kyle are kind of the people that I look at and like try to model
Yeah,
my own movement and my own sort of style after. And I think that that dance is a great example because it's very organic. You can really see them creating together sort of very in the moment with one another. And I
yeah,
think that that's extremely difficult and like such a powerful instruction on how wonderful a dance can be if we kind of just let it happen
sure.
rather than trying to really dictate sort of every movement in it.
So then I'm going to ask you that because saying so we've said this a lot, like let it happen, be
Hmm.
natural, and that's kind of like yeah, it's a no brainer for like you and me.
Hmm.
We've been in the business for a long time. Like we know we have to do that. We know we have to calm down. What are some things that you think works for you to do that?
For well,
To be more
yeah,
organic, to be present.
yeah. It's a great question. I think that it's something that's actually a struggle for me, and that I'm very much still kind of in process on. So just for some context, I've been dancing West Coast in like a semi-serious way for probably about 6 years, is the way to put it.
Okay.
I don't know how much like total floor time I've gotten over that period of time. So there are a lot of people who have really been at this in a much more significant way, much longer than I have. And for me, I am somebody who tends to be kind of more oriented in my head. Like I get kind of trapped in my thought process. I get nervous before I compete, like literally every time. Um, and I get what I noticed recently thinking about my spotlights is that I was like only planning.
Okay.
I was with my partner and I was only like, okay, here's the next thing that's coming up, and here's the next pattern that I'm going to do,
Yeah.
and here's how I got to move from one side of the floor to the other, and so on and so forth. And it was creating a lot of perfectly fine but kind of uninteresting dances,
Okay.
to be perfectly frank. And I think that over the last year, a real focus of mine has been kind of getting out of that brain space and trying to move into more thinking about my partner,
Yeah.
kind of returning to the partnering idea that
Yeah.
we were thinking about before. Like, how does my partner feel? Where's their weight in their body? How can I use that weight to create something interesting?
Yeah.
And it's just a little bit more of an organic way of thinking about it. So for me, in terms of to actually try to answer the question you asked, like
Sure.
what practices do I do in my body? I try to think about moving my brain from inside my head or inside here and try to put it into the partnership,
That's cool.
if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that
So
makes sense.
yeah, exactly. So I try to put my brain like in my hands. I really think about my hands. or I'll really think about the point of connection that I have with my partner's back. Um, and I'll think about, oh, okay, like they're in a different place than I would expect them to be. What can I use here? How can I do something that I haven't necessarily done before? I don't know. What are some of the things that you do to kind of create that or kind of get into a moment of spontaneity with somebody?
Well, I mean, it definitely depends on the person, but that's kind of where it's at. Is just speaking about how to treat your partner well and not like throw a bunch of garbage at them. Is I'll either think of my if my partner and I aren't synergistic, if we just don't mesh, then I will think of them as an obstacle, so to speak, and not in the terms of like, fuck, we're not going to dance well together, but in like, okay, she's heavier, maybe she's not listening. And I just say she, degendering West Coast swing, woot. It's just, I'm old. Just,
For the sake of convenience.
yeah,
it's
it's
okay.
just, it's my vocal patterns. So my partner, yeah, if it's like we're not meshing 100%, I'll be like, I'll kind of like move myself and use my standard skill set around what they're doing. Frankly, I'll treat my partner like they're a force of nature. And like, okay, in this way, she's sort of like the wind is blowing too hard in that direction. It's going to push me to the right. I'm going to come around here. It's going to work
So what do you
like
do
that.
about it? Yeah,
Yeah, what do you do
totally.
about it? It's really just problem solving at that point and going as naturally as possible. And I also have the benefit of I know my body. I grew up doing, I think I'm up to 5 different kinds of martial arts. I've been a dancer for 20 years. Like, I know my body. I know how it's going to
Sure,
react
yeah.
in certain ways. However, if I also have the benefit of like regularly dancing with like Delancey von Langendorfer, you know, she's
Sure.
she's the G.
Pretty good at dancing.
So with that, that's actually a harder challenge for me because she inspires me so much. She does so much that it's the best exercise to calm down and sort of just go along with it. You know, really wait, really pay attention to where her weight is. And then if there's a shit ton of weight in my right hand, maybe instead of just pushing it the other direction,
Sure.
I use a similar skill set to if they're an issue, I just work off
Yeah.
that and it pushes me into the next move. And I keep my moves extremely simple. I think I've got like 5 moves and a body roll in my repertoire.
Sure.
Seems to be working. So
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes total sense. And to just kind of chime in for one sec, Phoenix had a great comment. We're talking about like the experience of dancing a spotlight in particular as this thing that's kind of either that you're stuck with, you're committed to. It's the roller coaster. You know, you're strapped in, we'll see where it goes. And I do think that that's kind of alluding to something that's been useful for me is sort of thinking about things as if they've already happened.
oh, that makes
If
sense.
that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the outcomes of this, obviously we want to be in the moment or whatever it is, but really a spotlight is kind of the culmination of a lot of random factors and then whatever training you're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
Right? Like you've already put the work in your practice, in your social dancing, in your whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And the spotlight is kind of the moment that all of that work kind of gets to bloom. And you're not going to solve your dancing problems in the moment. So that's why like I don't generally advocate for people that they take a lesson right before they dance a spotlight. Because that just gets you thinking about all the stuff that's like problematic in your dancing.
Yeah, it's
And
silly.
I don't think that's very useful. Yeah, like so if I'm dancing in a spotlight, the worst thing that I can be thinking about is like, okay, you know, Forrest, you don't always straighten your legs quite right, so be really thoughtful about like pulling up from your hamstrings and like getting that really clean leg line. Because
Yeah.
let's be honest, in a spotlight, often no one really cares. We can talk about whether or not they should care, but in a spotlight, often no one really cares about that sort of thing.
Not really.
Yeah, so it's just about moving the focus into that kind of performative, more organic space.
But
And
there comes the issue too, is when you get so performative. Because I would submit, like, I'm not going to shit on Phoenix for this, but I think if you're thinking about this as a roller coaster, and maybe I'm just misunderstanding, I think that is less effective than being present, at least to a certain degree. Because if you're just there, things might go bad. Like I could tell, like Kyle Red, to quote him a long time ago, was like, I know that I can get on the floor and I can beat anybody because I know exactly what I'm gonna do because I've done, like you're saying, I've done all of the work. It's like it's all this prep. So saying I'm just there along for the ride, there's an inherent lack of um, attention being paid. Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah. I
I'm
mean, I
not
think that
saying
the
Phoenix specifically is doing that. I'm saying what the fuck?
I, yeah, I think the intent of the comment was more about that kind of like opening yourself to the experience
For
idea,
sure.
if that sort of makes
Yeah.
sense. Like you're just strapped in to a certain extent. And I do think that like there is this sort of two, but what you're referring to that I think is super useful is that there's this balance between our agency
Yeah.
in a moment and our go with the flow in a moment because there are all these things that are outside of our control, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't know who our partner's going to be, we don't know what our song's going to be, and stuff happens. It's our
Well,
favorite like
let's
watchword.
say we
Go ahead.
do know who our partner is going to be. Like, let's just put
Sure.
this in social context because people do
Awesome. Yeah.
absolutely batshit crazy stuff. What about then? And I'm guilty of that a ton. So,
What do you mean?
I mean, is it the same? Like, of course, it's not the same. That's a stupid way to ask that. In the context of a social setting,
Yeah.
how much more are you there along for the ride? How much more are you willing to pay attention and be active yet willing to go along with it?
Yeah, kind of wandering back to the original question, which was about that, like, why are leaders hurting followers more
That's what I'm
often?
talking about.
Yeah, I think that to kind of wend our way back to that, in a social setting, I do think I'm more purely organic often than I am in a competitive setting.
Right.
I think that I have a real weakness being organic in a competitive setting in terms of my own dancing because I get very in my head, I get nervous,
Okay.
and we all get nervous. There's like, I forget who it was who I was talking to, but it was someone who's been doing this for a very long time, and they said, like my aspiration is just once I want to have a competitive dance that's like my social dancing.
Huh.
And this is somebody who's been doing it for like 15 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that's a real aspiration for a lot of people because we can't always bring like we have these wonderful dances often after like 2 in the morning,
Yeah.
with people where you just feel like purely organic and purely in the moment with them.
Yeah.
And it's to a song that you wanted to dance to with a partner that you wanted to dance with, of course. To your point, it's removing that variability. And how do we take that mentality from like that really magical moment and to the extent that we can kind of bring it onto the competitive floor? And I wish I had an amazing answer to that question. Like if I had the answer to that, I would be doing it all the time and I would be like winning more contests, right? So I don't know, but I think that that's the goal. And I think that that's sort of the goal that you're speaking to. And the goal that that original questioner is asking, like, how can we remove some of the garbage? It may well have been a Kyle comment. Like, that's very much a goal of his, I know, is to kind of make that the look of his competitive dancing be social in nature.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that he's really wonderful at. And some other leaders, I think that Sean's really wonderful at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ben McHenry is really excellent at that. And on the follower side, like there already in the comments, there are a bunch of people who mentioned Brandy in terms of her sort of statement that she said in many, many workshops, which is that you can only have an amazing dance if you're willing to have a boring dance.
Sure.
And that really is about that kind of organic opening to the experience of the dance.
Yeah.
So that might have been a long-winded way to put that. But
I
there you go.
love whether you're short or long-winded, buddy. Just
The jokes write themselves.
hey, no, I mean it's the truth. For me, yeah, I have such a, I ride this weird little teeter-totter back and forth between like being the happiest go luckiest person when it comes to our dance and like everybody is beautiful and everybody can be expressive.
Sure, yeah.
And then just being this curmudgeon-y asshole about,
Sure, yeah.
I mean, like, mostly, I'm very thankful for the comment that we got that prompted everything because my main issue with our dance is the lack of patience, is the lack of willingness to calm down. And I know some people have already said, like, being content no matter. Phoenix, I really love the way that he says this. To clarify, being content no matter the result allows you to engage in the moment. That's very true, but the amount of people who actually do that, it drops. Because I honestly don't think people know how to do that. Because you say being content, but that's, as this is still a lead and follow based thing,
It's hard to do
it's
that.
very hard to do that. because
Yeah, and Joel sort of raised that in the comments where he
yeah,
says, doesn't that require both people in the partnership to have the same goal? And it's like, well, yes, but I do think that we each have, I mean, I would like to think in any given dance, like there, sorry to cut you off, but just one
no, no,
second
no,
response.
please,
In any given spotlight dance, I feel like there are often dances where one person kind of takes the lead
yeah,
more than the other person, and that's fine. But on average, you have about 50% input into the content of a given dance. So even if your partner is not necessarily like 100% on the bandwagon with you, you can still nudge the intention of the dance in a direction.
yeah.
So I guess that would be sort of my response to that.
That makes sense. And I mean, that sort of, and I could be misunderstanding, or maybe this just is sparking something in me, but I always go
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to it's a conversation, it's a push and
Yes.
pull. It's very, I think about it like it's water, and what's the Bruce Lee quote is, water can fill the cup, it becomes the cup, and that sort of thing. So in a lesser extent, if you get pushback on the move that you're getting, maybe not like powering it through, and that's usually what I see. There's more like, no, 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 you're going to go and do the underarm weirdness thing that I just learned from watching the tubes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I totally returning to that original question, I do think that a lot of the reason so injuries happen, I think, for a couple of different reasons.
Hmm.
They're like a few different categories. One category, it's just an accident.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, shit happens and somebody gets hurt. It's a physical, athletic thing. Um, it's going to happen some percentage of the time.
Yeah.
Of course, we can make it happen as little as possible, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that category. Then the second category of things that happen is, frankly, when somebody was off their game for whatever reason. At a West Coast dance event, this is often because they were inebriated and they did something dumb.
Yeah.
Another version of that is somebody trying something they would not normally try because they feel pressured to do so for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And this happens a lot in spotlights, where somebody feels the big moment coming up and they just kind of throw themselves into the thing because they want to have that magical thing happen and have it be amazing. So they try to just create amazing and then somebody gets hurt.
Yeah.
And the third category, which I think it is 80 to 90% leaders do this and 10 to 20% follows doing this, is a lack of receptivity to where the partnership is at a given moment.
Yeah.
And a lack of understanding of the mechanics of a body.
Yeah.
And really this comes through in connection and it comes through in forcing. Like as Katrina says in the comments, like the keyword is nudge.
Yeah.
Right? This is a nudge dance. This is not really a force dance.
Right.
I think the balance there is a pretty ephemeral one, and it's tough to teach people that. But I do think that we can move the priority in some of our instruction more in the direction of how do we teach good partnering rather than how do we teach good patterns.
Well, I have a maybe not a solution, but a tool that I would recommend a lot of people do. And this isn't right for everybody, but take a form of dance or a form of martial art that requires pretty full body contact. Like one of the reasons that Max Sons has the style that he has and he's such a clear lead is because he's like a judo champion. It's full body contact all the time. He can read people really well. At the same time, there's contact improv. It forces you to pay attention. And honestly, it gets you out of a weird confidence bubble because you do some weird shit. But taking the time to really learn how to maneuver in incredibly awkward and oftentimes detrimental situations, do that outside of being a swing dancer. Learn how your body properly works.
Sure, yeah.
I want to talk about what Andrew said really quick. He says, competitive dance in nature is different from social dancing. Competitive dancing has a performance aspect that social dancing usually doesn't. In my opinion, they ought to be separate things. It's awesome to bring a lot of social stuff in, but competitive dancing, there's a lot more to think about in my experience. Song structure, floor craft, contrast. I found that for me, I've chosen to mentally separate them since I relax a lot more in social dancing. And in my competitive dancing, I need to be a lot more intentional with my body. Shrugs, my own thoughts. I like the way he puts that, and I like the way that he makes it about him. And to make it about me, I don't do anything different in my competition than I do in my social anymore. And it's come to a point where I've accepted that that's not going to win me everything. But like you're saying before, the things that will happen because I have one setting at this point. They'll be more organic, and when the things are beautiful, they're going to be stunning. And when they're, they're going to be there. I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody, but for me, it's worked really well in raising my confidence as a West Coast dancer in general, to not have to it's competition mode, better switch it on. It's not that kind of dance for me. It's not hyper athletic. It's not, I don't have to wait and, okay, here comes the break. Now I got to bust a waterfall. It's not like Lindy from back in the day or a pas de deux.
Sure. Yeah.
But the way that he presents that, I really like that. So thank you for sharing that, Andrew. Jesse, in finals at Swingcouver, I felt like my dances were very much as amazing as our social dances the night before. See? And we ended up placing worse, damn it, than I have in a finals before.
Oh,
It happens. I don't have a lot of competitive training, so I mostly dance the same in comps and social dancing. I would say one big difference is the music we get in comps is different than late night. I mean, you'll get standard competition music, and Forrest is a DJ. You can attest to this more than I can. There is a set of shit that gets played for a competition.
Yeah, at any given moment, there are probably about 100 to 200 songs that are in rotation.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just those 100 to 200 songs. Yeah.
Yeah. So for that, there's actually, you want to protect your partner, get to know the songs more. And
that is super true. Oh man, that's really true. Yeah, that's a great point, actually.
I kind of want to pull up my dance with Delancey from Rose City because it was such a nightmarish train wreck for me. I hated it.
That was not my experience watching it. But...
It was fun, and I didn't hurt her. That's where the positives are. And otherwise, I'm dancing with someone I consider one of the best in the world to a song she knows left, right, back, and forth.
Yeah.
And I'm just there,
and you just felt like you were just at sea, just adrift in the music.
And no joke, every other person on that line got a song. I was like, I intimately know. I have had biblical knowledge of this song. Yes,
sure, yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I think that it is funny how there really is no experience that's more like, for me. Okay, all right, now I'm gonna opine for a second. You got me going. There are two experiences to me that are just the most disempowering. I feel like an ineffective human experiences that you could have in a spotlight. And the first one is when the song comes on and you're out there, you're ready to kill it. You've got a great partner, you're ready to go. And the song comes in and you're just like, this is garbage.
Yeah.
Or you're just like, I have no idea what to do now. What do I do?
Yeah.
That feels so bad. Yeah. That is such a feel bad moment. And the second thing are those moments where you're dancing with somebody, and I'm sure I've done this to a partner before, we've all done it, where they just make a really weird choice that you don't have any input on.
Yeah.
The moment where somebody just does the triple free spin and they just fall. And you're just like, I'm standing here too. That is such a shitty moment. So, anyways, those are the two things that I just feel like I could not feel less empowered in those moments in spotlight dances.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I like when it's you tune out, and this, I think when I hurt myself, this is the most that this happens. Is, well, Tony, we're only kind of now getting into the topic, so we'll talk lots more. Don't worry. So anyway, the thing for me is is a sort of along the same lines, the thing is happening and I don't know what to do, is I tune out and I'm like, I've got this.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And then it's just, I should have been paying attention, and there goes.
Yeah, no, I've definitely had the moment where I was like, I have the greatest idea. Okay, here's what we're going to do. And I have it all planned and it happens and I'm like, Shazam. And then I realize, oh, wait, that was the next phrase.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
That's amazing.
That is a saddening feeling.
I love it. I honestly love, there's just something about being humbled immediately.
Yeah. for
that
sure.
is really good and refreshing.
Yeah, and you got to have an openness to that because we've all got the awkward moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there it is again. Is like the openness. Like you want to avoid a lot of just to keep talking about the protect your damn partner or yourself topic. To not worry about flash and trash. Like be open to the thing you're gonna do. Probably there's a good chance it's not gonna work. Like you're saying, you know, the 50% input. It's a partnership. Sometimes your brain is elsewhere. You try your best to be a partnership. It just things don't go your way, and it's like slamming a square thing into a circle hole. It's just sometimes, yeah, you can brute force it. Things are gonna get hurt. Anyway, I was gonna take a much dirtier.
I could like hear you censoring yourself as you were saying
I
it. It was
hate it.
great.
This thing is supposed to be unfiltered. I'm still kind of.
I was about to say, I think a little bit of family friendliness is appropriate here,
It'll
but
depend on the topic. One of these days, it's just going to be about. Actually, I want to do like a censorship episode because that's important to me.
okay.
Well, not now. Like we'll do it, or maybe at the end. I don't
I
know.
was like, we got 15 minutes, let's go. No.
We got 25 minutes, man. We could
We
talk.
got 25
We could
minutes.
talk
Yes.
some shit. I hope you had nothing to do today. Okay, so yeah, I mean the topic thus far we've been talking about, to just reiterate, and if you're just joining us, it's essentially like because of the YouTube generation or just like the proliferation of viewing this dance as opposed to going and learning it from a teacher and really learning the hands-on. There's been a lot more injury, and how do we deal with that? Essentially, leads and follows, and feel free to. Whoa, the chat exploded with "Oh my God, I want in your endo." Time for the angry faces. Sure. Okay.
The angry face remains the official face of this
I
webcast.
wish you would not encourage them. But all right, we'll get shirts. It'll just be an angry face.
It'll just be an angry
Yeah,
face. I'm in. I'm so ready.
We're already like 60% walking memes as human beings, so whatever.
Done.
Yeah. So let me think here. So there's also a couple different kinds of dancer. Like not just what mindset do you get into, but there's a lot of people who get into this stuff to be performers.
Sure, yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say a lot of people because it's still a social dance, but you can feel the difference when somebody's like hits a thing and it comes out of nowhere. Okay, work your way around that. Understand the kind of dancer you're working with, lead or follow, and that'll help you a ton. I dance very differently with Delancey than I do with Chantel Pianetta. I dance very differently with Brandy than I do with Deborah, and they have similar things going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a willingness, sort of what you're talking about here, is a willingness to change your plan.
Yeah.
And okay, so this is, I might get in trouble for this one.
Do it.
So there's a phrase that Brandy had once.
Break the seal.
And I think that she's okay with. I hope that she's okay with me sharing this because she shared it in large workshops of people, where she said something to the effect of, "All right, if I, there are some people where if I draw them in a contest, I'm really there to give a lot of input and have a lot of voices, and there are some people where if I draw them in a contest, I listen and I cash the check." And I'm just cool with doing that.
Yeah.
And it is like, that is a great phrase right there, right? So, just a willingness to change your plan based on the agenda that your partner has. If your partner comes in with a really strong agenda, then I think that that's part of what being a successful competitive dancer and also, frankly, a successful social dancer is about. It's about not having a kind of dogmatic viewpoint of the dance where you say, I am in this dance right now, therefore it has to go this way. I think that's a really horrible way to think about this dance.
Yeah.
And the more openness and willingness that we have to have a conversation, to have a compromise, to have input from both elements of the partnership, I think is really, really important. And also, sort of related to Mackenzie's comment, this is not an athletic dance, but I think that if you are a dancer, you should probably. Okay, so I'm going to give a lot of caveats.
If you're a human.
if you are a human who dances and you want this to be like a significant pursuit in your life
Hmm.
and you want to do well competitively and blah, 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 you should think about yourself as being a kind of athlete.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. I don't think that that means that your body needs to look a certain way.
No.
I don't think that means that you got to have a six pack. I don't think that that means that you got to be able to touch your toes or throw your foot over your head or any of that
You
stuff.
might want to be able to touch your toes. That bar is pretty low.
It would probably be helpful,
Yeah.
but I'm just trying to be as inclusive as
Touch
possible
your
here with
partner's
it.
toes. It counts.
Sure, there you go. But I think that you should think of yourself as an athlete,
Yeah.
and I do think that there are some injuries that happen because that is not necessarily the intent.
Oh yeah.
And as Alpha's saying, as Mackenzie is saying, athleticism does create so many options in the dance.
Yep. For me, to understand what you want to get out of this, and I have another thing I'll get into this. Like if you want to be a pro, and I'm talking world renowned, that's where I have sort of a cutoff where it stops being
Sure.
like everyone is beautiful and blah blah blah. Like everyone is beautiful and people can if you can
Yeah,
learn to
that's a real
perform,
thought.
frankly, you'll be fine and you'll make a huge
Yeah,
living and whatever. But
sure.
if you want to remove all guesswork out of this shit, go strengthen your body, get much more limber, treat it like any other dance, and that means stretching every damn day or at least
Hmm.
a lot. Like I would say if
Hmm.
you're looking for a number, at the very least 4 times a week. I have to do for my show, I have to be 20 minutes twice a day, which
Wow.
is not a
Yeah.
lot, honestly.
Sure. Yeah.
But at the very least, a nice bellwether is the ability to do the splits front and back, and to be able to touch your toes at the very least. And then,
Sure.
to
I wish I could do the splits, you know?
yeah, I'm almost there. I hate it. I've never been
You're working on
flexible.
it?
Yeah, well,
You're
that's my
grinding?
thing. Is like I've never been flexible, but now that I have, so I'll share this with everybody. I don't know if I shared it last week. I don't think I knew last week, but I got my dream job.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, my director DJ Brown, he's bringing a number of his Vegas shows to town, and in terms of dancers, he's my role model. I really would love to be this guy one day, so to speak. And so he told me that we have auditions coming up. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? And he flat out told me, he's like, oh, nothing. I want you to take my part. And usually he's the only man in a show of like anywhere from 8 to 20 people.
Wow.
Yeah, so I cried for a little bit. I asked, "What do you need from me?" He's like, "Nothing. We're gonna make this about you. However, you need to go stretch." So he's got me on a regimen now. So I have to kind of man up and or whatever artist up and do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I've been dancing for 20 years, and I need to accept that there's just a thing I got to do if I'm going to take the next step. If I'm going to go into a Vegas level show, there's just some things that I'm not good at that I have to be willing to admit I'm not good at.
Absolutely.
And yeah, please.
No, I mean, okay, so I mean, for me, really, what you're talking about here is sort of one of my like major watchwords and the things that I really care about, which is just taking responsibility for the results in your life, whether that be kind of dancing or otherwise. Obviously, there are a lot of things that are outside of our control,
Yeah.
and I think that those things that are outside of our control are important to acknowledge.
Yes.
Like life is a huge river of causes and effects, and we have only so much input over all of those causes and effects. But that actually makes it even more important for us to control the things that we can control.
Exactly.
And one of the things that we can control in our dancing is our as Taylor says in the chat, are kind of the tools that we have in our toolbox. Your body, when you are a dancer, is one of many tools that you have to create artistry. It's a paintbrush. It's a mechanism for art.
Yeah.
And why not give yourself as many options as possible with that tool? Like Benji's a great example of this.
Yeah.
Benji is like a borderline Olympic level athlete,
Yeah.
just in terms of his pure physical
Pecs.
athleticism. Yeah, just the whole. I mean, whether it's physique or stretch
Yeah.
or strength or power or however you want to put it, he is an Olympic level
He's a
athlete.
monster.
And yeah, he's a monster. And that gives him options that I don't have in my dancing.
Right.
Like, I cannot throw my leg up and over my partner's connection and then like loop my body underneath the arm. I can't do that. Like, that is not an option I got.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can get into a whole conversation about whether or not that's like an inherent movement you should be able to do in West Coast Swing or not. I would say no,
I
it's
would
not.
say
You don't
no.
have to be able to. Yeah, I would say no, you don't have to do that. But hell, if you can, it's kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I mean, like both of those things could simultaneously be true.
Yeah.
So anyways, and I think that it's yeah, I know I can't. I'm sorry, Dana. It's a bummer. I wish one day I'll get
That's
there.
awesome. Brian asks, oh, how many people want to see Forrest do the splits? I give him till New Year's.
Oh
It'll be
man,
great.
I don't.
We should start a
sounds
pool.
painful.
No,
It
because I
sounds
need to do it too.
uncomfortable.
It'll be great. It'll be awesome.
Oh God,
Forrest will be
I don't
doing the
know about this.
splits and hovering around people. He'll just transcend gravity in some way. So Brian asks, dude, stretching is the most painful ever. Good ways to do it, motivating
Yes.
routines for people like me that are rusty door hinges, especially in legs and hips. Like I said, I've never been flexible. So
Yeah.
realizing the difference between pain and intensity is a very big deal.
Yes.
So it's stretching is not like it's not a ballistic thing. You're in it for the long haul, and
Yeah.
accepting that is incredible. Also, Tony, we can totally make Force do it by force. That's what we're talking
Oh.
about. It'll be great.
Yeah, I thought we were talking about how not to get injured
No, no, no.
during this episode, you
No,
know?
no, no. That was for the other thing. This is about we're gonna give you a crotchectomy.
Oh, this is about us. Okay,
Yeah,
all
you
right,
and me.
gotcha,
You and me.
gotcha.
Well, it's I have to censor myself again.
We're in this together, buddy.
So anyway, yeah, I'll do a stretching stream. How about that? One of these, and we can do it together so people
That's a
can get
great
an
idea.
idea. Yeah, uh,
Yeah.
and Mackenzie is an amazing resource. If anybody ever is around Mackenzie, have her teach you some things. She's an extremely talented technician and dancer.
Yeah, for sure.
So try. It's basically yin yoga. You sit in a position for 3 to 5 minutes. And it doesn't need to be a very intense stretch, but it's enough that eventually your body, just gravity is going to take over and it will slowly bring you down. When you're more comfortable, like Mackenzie's saying, don't forget about ballistic stretches. When you're comfortable to do that, I highly recommend it. But if you're like me and Brian and Forrest, where you're just like an old man in the crotch region, that was a weird way of saying that. I regret nothing.
No, keep it going. Keep it going.
If you're just a little bit more let's call it grizzled hips, you take your time and learn to like the feeling. Yeah. Partner stretching is amazing. I did that in martial arts and it helped with my flexibility. Agreed. Good. I'm glad. Also, acro yoga is a lot of fun. It also makes you much closer to whoever you're with. I highly recommend that Forrest come and Brian and Forrest should do it. It'll be great.
Okay, so I love Victor's liner about DJs only need to stretch their finger to hit play on the mouse. That's a great one-liner. Deeply accurate. To kind of slight, mini left turn here. In terms of what Brian you were saying about like mechanisms to get into stretching or fitness in general, for me, it's a lot about habit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Katie has a great triple stretch workshop. This is a great example. She does Fit for the Floor, which are a series of workshops that are now happening at various events. They're super cool. They're generally in the morning. And people have been really into that and have given some great feedback around it. And one of the things to do for me about any kind of physical fitness, whether that be about like how flexible I am, how strong I am, or that be about my dance technique, is it's about establishing a habit of practice around the thing. So for a long time last year, for a variety of reasons, I kind of fell out of my habits around physical fitness
Well,
to
you
a certain
almost
extent. I still have
died,
some of
as
them.
I recall.
Well, yeah, I mean, so some things went down, but it
So,
happens. So there was a period I was in the hospital for a thing. This was a couple years ago, and I just like totally fell out of all of my physical habits, and it was extremely, extremely difficult for me to get back into them initially. And so what I started to do is I said, okay, I'm going to do something athletic every day. I don't care what that is. I don't care if it's for 5 minutes or an hour.
Hmm.
I'm going to do something athletic every day.
Yeah.
And just kind of establishing that and having that be sort of my baseline of behavior
Yeah.
was really transformative and was really, really powerful because I couldn't really cheat. Like if you do something where you say, okay, I'm going to do it 3 times a week,
Yeah.
you can kind of push back what those 3 times a week are. And
Yeah.
it's like it becomes this very fuzzy sort of requirement. But if I say every day, I'm going to sit down and do a thing, you really kind of have to hold yourself to that. So it requires a little bit more personal responsibility there.
Yeah. I love that. That was, I have nothing to add. That was perfect. Um, I was, oh, actually, I'll give a slight personal story in that regard.
Okay.
Like, just,
Mm-hmm.
I've always had strong legs, but I've always been something of a scrawny person otherwise. Like, I've never really had strength.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I call it bulked out, I guess, or became healthier or
Mm-hmm.
something is exactly what you're saying, even without us having. That's not true, actually. We totally talked about this. I've asked
Mm-hmm.
Forrest for advice for a long time about things, and I think one time we were drinking, and I said, "How are you so sexy?" And it was a very emotional question, and he basically gave
And
me that
I
same
looked like
advice.
this and looked
No, you
awkward
didn't.
and
You
yeah.
looked. You were like in like Flynn, man. It was crazy. I was just like, Forrest, how do you get so sexy? And you're like, well, without missing a beat.
Oh,
And there
jeez.
was no ego. It was just well, I really pace myself, and I make sure that I do 5 minutes every day. I was like, yeah, okay. Car bomb, great. It was
I
5280
also
some years
only eat
ago.
grass. Yeah, that's more or less accurate. Um, that's a fair, fair point, Tony.
But
Okay.
everything we're saying, especially the advice that Forrest just gave, these are great ways to protect yourself if in a partnership. If you know
Hmm.
your body, and if you have honestly some flexibility and some muscle and the ability to really the patience that it builds doing all of these things, you will find you are injured less. You will know how to respond to different situations in a much more beneficial way. Also, this one I don't know why isn't talked about that much, but like the whole thing of well, my partner's really rough and blah blah. It's a lot of blame,
Yeah.
which I get 100%. But
Mhm.
when you get a partner like that, it's no different than matching them if they're super light. For me,
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
or conversely, being willing to cut bait. Like
I was literally just about to say this.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. So go ahead.
Well, for an example, I think her last name, it's Jade. I forget her last name all the time. Is it Ruiz?
Ruiz. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
love her
She's great.
because in mid competition, I've seen her multiple times. Somebody go for like this, like the Dimitri Soliotis, like leaping through the air and superhero drop, but they don't know how to do it. And,
Sure.
and even Meech, it fucks up sometimes. Like she full on like ducked out of the way and like shook her
She
head
was
like
dipped
we're
out of
not
it.
doing
Yeah.
that. And it
Yeah.
worked.
No, for sure. I mean, understanding like when to bail is a big part of protecting your body.
Yeah,
And I mean, again, this would be a great thing to have more of a direct follows input on.
agreed.
But I've certainly talked to a lot of follows, and a lot of protecting yourself is about scaling your willingness to be brave based on the partner that you are currently dancing with.
Yeah.
So in a social setting, for me, it's a lot of it's about being willing to say no
Yeah.
and being comfortable with yourself enough to say no to somebody. And I'm really bad in general at saying no to people if they ask me to dance. Like I generally say yes if somebody
Not
asks me
me.
to dance. Yeah, but like honestly, I think that there are times where it's really appropriate to say no to somebody.
Yeah.
And I know that we have a culture as a dance, and I think that it's a good thing in general to have a culture of a dance where in general we're nice to each other and we say yes and we try to dance with more people. But look, like you've got to be able to disengage. And Tony's raising a good point here, is putting the responsibility on people who have the potential to get hurt instead of teaching people how not to hurt.
Yeah.
And we, of course, should aspire to teach people how, as we were talking about a little bit earlier in the show, how not to harm one another and how to be good technically, how to be good physically, how to have a sensitivity to the connection. These were all things that we talked about. But at the end of the day, it's your body.
Yeah.
And you got to take care of it.
Yeah.
And being willing to disengage connection because something bad's about to happen is a part of that equation.
Yeah. Can you handle,
whether that's from a lead or a follow?
Yeah, 100%. Can you handle a response to Mackenzie's question? Because I feel like you'd have a more eloquent way of putting it than I would.
Okay. This is a great question because it's a little bit of a soapbox for me. I don't believe in heavy. And here's what I mean by this. I think that follows are told all the time, like, you're too heavy.
Yeah.
And we have this word heavy where it's like being heavy is bad. Or you're too, and I think that word has a lot of cultural connotations around it that are really problematic for people. So for me, it's there is more connection and there is less connection.
Yeah.
And then there's actually what I'll refer to as heaviness, which is where you're pushing on your partner.
Yeah.
And you are relying them to establish your own frame and your own balance. So to me, someone is only heavy when they are not in control of their weight.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So that's when you're heavy. When you are more connected or less connected, those are just choices.
Yeah.
And some people have preferences about being more connected or less connected. And by the way, many of the most fantastic follows on the planet give a lot of connection.
Yeah.
I was talking with some people about this actually last night at the warehouse, where so Alyssa, for me, is an example of at least where she dances with me, and different people dance differently with different people. I tend to be really light, too light. And she tends to give a lot of connection when she dances with me. And I really love it because I feel like it helps me get to a place where I can establish more connection inside my own body. So she's literally using the amount of quote unquote weight.
Yeah.
It's not that, but let's use that word because it's a simple word, to guide me into like a more appropriate stance in my body. And if you can do that, you're a fucking ninja.
Yeah.
Like, that is some high level shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not pretending like we can all kind of like walk into a dance and do that. But so to me, that's a kind of heavy connection that is perfectly wonderful and appropriate. And again, that like the bad heavy comes when you're not in control of your body.
Yeah.
If you're in control of your body, you cannot be heavy. And if you're in control of your body and somebody calls you heavy, like, you know, give them the double slap or whatever it is. Because I think it's a really, really problematic sort of meme that we have in the community about like what kind of connection is good connection. Oh, I like everything to be so light all the time. If you're light, you can't use leverage.
Yeah.
If you're not connected, you literally cannot leverage. That's not, you can't leverage from no connection.
Yeah.
So you need connection in order to perform most of like the important actions that we have in this dance.
Yep.
So it's a great question. It's a great sort of thought in general.
And it's a great answer.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
Yeah, I love how you put that. And again, if you're looking for examples, look at most Cirque du Soleil athletes. There's no way that...
Like, are they heavy? I don't know, but they're connected as you can be.
100%. I mean, like, watching... I forget their names, but they're these world-renowned balancers, essentially. Their whole thing is they leverage one another. And watching a clip of them years ago, I started sort of messing with it more. And I'm just like, oh, no, this is everything that I want. Cool. And, like, frankly... I like intimacy in my dances, and I don't mean like getting down and dirty like people usually take that. I mean like I want to feel what another person's body is doing, like you're saying. So
for sure, yeah.
I want to know where your hips are at. I want to feel your hand on me. None of this like weird hovery, like I'm gonna put a portion of my palm on you. We're gonna be here, and that's a sugar push because that's what I learned. Like I want to feel, if you're gonna put your fucking hand on me, I want it to feel like. There's hand there. There's fingers. We're in it together. Sure. We're going to take more time. Obviously, not every time. Sometimes it's blazing fast and you can't do that. But even then, my favorite example is typically Melissa Roots, because I'm gonna quote John Lindo on this, and he's like, she and I danced a while back. I pulled her in an All-American, and he's like, honey, you did very well. Because if you didn't hold on, she was going to take you for a ride. I was like, that's amazing. Because she's super powerful, and I love it.
Yeah.
She just knows where she
has
needs to
total
be.
ownership of her own body.
Exactly.
And that's what I think is really wonderful. Like Melissa's a perfect example of that. She has such beautiful ownership of her own movement.
Yeah.
And it is because she is as trained as a human can be.
Yep.
Like, she has done all of the styles, she has done all of the dances. And she has such a lived sense of her body's power and technique. And, you know, we all have the things we're better at or worse at. And the consciousness of that is really, really important as well. So I think that's a really great example.
Yeah. And honestly, like Brandy, everybody needs to take a lesson from Brandy about connection. Everybody. I'll be doing it at Czech and Gillarama. Like, it's, you know, there are things that she does, that Melissa does, that a number of people do, regardless of level, that you need to at least experience. And Brandy specifically is just so subtle in the way that she does these things. People sort of don't see it, you know. And actually, there's a lot that I'm singing her praises pretty hard right now, but there's a lot that Brandy does that people don't really get. If you have the time, take a lesson from her. She'll learn you right, so to speak. Even if
she's a very subtle dancer.
Yeah, my favorite story, and I may have told it last week, was from their Whine About It thing from Rose City, where Deborah was talking about the first time that she saw her dance, or one of the first times, and Brandy busted like 12 one-footeds while spotting the audience. And and a lot of, like, it's stuff like that, like the really minute attentions to detail. So anyway, if you're looking for a resource, go to there. We are unfortunately out of time. So again, Forrest, thank you so much. Always, man. This is
super happy to be here, man.
I love you. And Forrest is an incredible resource as well. And you may notice in lower beneath his portrait there is his book that he worked on with his father, Rick Hansen. It is available on Amazon now.
Every time the promo comes out.
Not every time. It's the second week. Shut up and like, come on. And below me is our sponsor for the week. Those of you that have contacted me for sponsorships, thank you so much. I will be getting back to you this week. I had a lot to do day job wise, but we will be getting more presence with all of you. What am I thinking here? I did have something cool to talk to you guys about. I forgot, so it must not have been that cool. So yeah,
I'm sure it was cool.
I'm sure it was delightful. But Forrest is an incredible resource as well. Those go and glorify.
Andrew is the most incrediblest resource.
I'm just loud and I celebrate people, and I have an internet connection. So if we missed your comment, please send it to me. We'll do our best to model a show around it if we can. If there's things that you want to see on here, please let us know. If you want to be on the show and we've had a conversation in real life, please let me know. I would love to get some more opinions on here. And I'm trying to remember what I was going to tell you because it was dope and it's not there. But I guess that's going to be it from us. My name is Andrew Slack. Thank you guys so much for being here. Go and have the best day that you've ever had. And we will see you again on West Coast Live. Wait, now I remember.
That's a picture over my face of a file cabinet.
Sorry, it's fine. I totally remember what we were going to talk about. Next week, we are doing the special episode that we were setting up. It will be with myself.
Oh, we're back.
We're back. We're live. It'll be with myself, Forrest Hansen, and our very, very special guest, Shantala Davis. Check us out then. Same time, same place. We're going to get a little deep. So, come expecting the third date questions is the way I put it usually.
I like it.
Now go have the best day you've ever had.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.